We move now to welcoming back Riyadh Derouiche. Riyadh is going to give an insight into how digitalisation is mitigating supply chain risk on projects. Riyadh.
A lot was discussed today about how agriculture is ahead of construction. Hence, I will start with a small anecdote about when I was 8 years old, how I used to go buy bread when I used to live in the outskirts of Jazair Asima. You would have to wake up at 5 a.m., queue for 2 hours, wait for the opening of the shop, and maybe as a traditional Arab family, get 6 breads or 7 or 8 if you're lucky in the queue. Otherwise, you go back with nothing. Why? Why is that happening? As an 8-year-old, I would think that I was not lucky and a sense of pride goes down in me. But in reality, what we're seeing today, inflation, commodities missing, broken supply chain, that was at the heart of how that little boy was not able to achieve the goal of the day. Today, in construction, we're seeing the same topics. Asmi Riyadh Derouiche, partner in charge of real estate, construction, and housing, and to the deep in my heart, as well as deep in the heart of many in Saudi Arabia, is around making sure that we achieve that vision and making sure that we bring a home to each citizen. Now, a lot has been said, and mega projects are there with putting a lot of pressure on the ecosystem. COVID-19 was just one phenomenon to show how to stress the supply chain. But today, inflation, geopolitics, scarcity of materials are putting incremental pressure into what we see the ability to deliver these ambitious plans. Now, how many times all seemed under control in a construction project from a planning perspective, then we get the red flags from downstream from the project and we are not able to react on time. Our benefits or objective that we want to achieve as a supply chain is to build a more resilient supply chain, to be able to have managed risk, anticipate what will happen, build growth with the digital-enabled technology, and build talent, like my previous speaker was mentioning around upskilling. And today I want to walk you through 3 simple myths, 3 myths that everyone thinks are reality, and what are the realities against them. Myth number 1, each project is different. We cannot embrace technology at every department. It has to be in silos. And by the way, we cannot predict demand. There's fluctuation and we cannot control it. Reality. The right advanced technology is available from planning to execution. And the importance of this technology is not standing in silo in one department as the previous panel was discussing, but rather in the reality of the interoperability between those departments. Imagine you arrive to your work and you can see those monitoring dashboards already flashing. You know the productivity of your people that is updated real time. You know the material that are being used real time, and this information is flying upwards where you can make decisions. Artificial intelligence is taking and moving the trucks with the right material. Drones are supporting that transportation and logistic, and technology coming into place so you can see it through VR and discuss it with your CEO at the same time as it's happening. And having the flexibility and agility with those technologies to be able to react and act, not at the end of the month, but at the end of the day. That technology is available, and that automation in a closed-loop planning is available for planners to executioners. Now, we're talking at an organizational level, but what about the whole supply chain? Myth number 2. Technology can only be relevant for designers. cannot be relevant for contractors, developers, let alone modern methods of construction manufacturers. Reality. Technology is spread across all players, and coupled with new modern methods of construction, the productization and standardization of the needs of the whole value chain can be anticipated, planned, and reacted to in real-time manner. Modern methods of construction, as my previous colleagues were mentioning, is around the factorization, moving into, instead of project-based, where we all meet once, but the whole supply chain working together as we produce cars. We're moving from designers being alone and imagining the future to becoming part of the organization of building and becoming also a productization, repetition. That has not only impact on the flow of information and material, but also has impact in the standardization. Not only will you have the standards materials that are required with an output that is different, but also predictability and faster human interaction. Now, that's good for the supply chain. However, how do we make this happen? Myth number 3. It is all a global market. Nothing can be controlled. These are commodities. Inflation cannot be controlled. Reality. Shocks are always there to happen more and more frequently, but can be predicted or can be reacted. We can move from a defensive mode to an offensive planned ability to react. The materials are controlled by certain countries. However, those countries can control only 25%. Still 75% is fragmented. The impact on ESG is up to us as policymakers and regulators to incentivize and change the status quo. Saudi Green Initiative with the certification of SAF is already put in place to ensure the projects are moving in the right direction of ESGs. This morning, our colleague was mentioning the program of certification that is happening. So policies can incentivize the right actions by the different players. We would have digital twins, as we've seen an example, that monitor but also exemplifies and stress scenarios. And we can have what-if scenario. We can stress the supply chain, and regulator can have a role, can play a massive role in introducing penalties, but also incentives. Can have a role in introducing contract with no touch, where everything is seamless. Can have a role in incentivizing the blockchain payments and transparency in order for us to monitor those transactions and being able to anticipate what can happen. Regulators and policymakers can also influence substitute products in order to avoid dependency. Regulator and policymaker can also localize high-value materials. A lot can be done. Not to make it much longer, in conclusion, I believe there are a few pillars that monitoring technologies can support to make it happen at the company level, at the supply chain level, but also overall as a country. And these are around the pillar of regulation, data management, capability, and talent upskilling. Policies can have a light touch pro-innovation approach. Data can be aggregated and demand can be anticipated. At country level, negotiations can happen by knowing those mega projects' demands. Early engagement with suppliers can happen with the monitoring tools. Leveraging digital tools not only can improve tactical and immediate action, but also long-term strategies, and support us to be on the offensive on having substitutions ahead of time and localization opportunities where it makes a difference. As one word to go back to the bread example, it is true that it is an industry that hasn't changed for 30 years, 20 years, but I thought we could never change the bread availability when I was 8 years old, and it has significantly changed without technology. Today, with the time is for technology, and it will happen, and we will see it here in Saudi Arabia, because we are the center of experimentation and center of demand worldwide, where there are projects beyond NEOM and a mega project happening that makes those technologies relevant for today. Thank you very much.